Hello guys, welcome to Emmy Audible. Today we are going to read the first chapter of the Benjamin Graham's book, The Intelligent Investor. I have already completed the book Rich Dad and Poor Dad. Click on the I button and check. So let's start. All of human unhappiness comes from one single thing, not knowing how to remain at rest in a room, Blaise Pascal. Why do you suppose the brokers on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange always cheer at the sound of the closing bell, no matter what the market did that day? Because whenever you trade, they make money, whether you did or not. By speculating instead of investing, you lower your own odds of building wealth and raise someone else. Graham's definition of investing could not be clearer. An investment operation is one which, upon through analysis, promises, safety of principles, and an adequate return. Note that interesting, according to Graham's, consists equally of three elements. First, you must thoroughly analyze a company and the soundness of its underlying businesses before you buy its stock. Number 2, you must deliberately protect yourself against serious losses. Number 3, you must aspire to execute not extraordinary performance. An investor calculates what a stock is worth based on the value of its business. A speculator gambles that a stock will go up in price because somebody else will pay even more of it. As Graham once put it, investors judge the market price by established standards of value, while speculators base standards of value upon the market price. For a speculator, the incessant stream of stock quotes is like oxygen. Cut it off and he dies. For an investor, what Graham called quotational values matter much less. Graham urges you to invest only if you would be comfortable owning a stock, even if you had no way of knowing its daily share price. Like casino gambling or betting on the horses, speculating in the market can be exciting or even rewarding if you happen to get lucky, but it's the worst imaginable way to build your wealth. That's because Wall Street, like Las Vegas or the racetrack, has calibrated the odds so that the house always prevails in the end, against everyone who tries to beat the house at its own speculative game. On the other hand, investing is a unique kind of casino, one where you cannot lose in the end, so long as you play only by the rules that put the odds squarely in your favor. People who invest make money for themselves, people who speculate make money for their brokers, and that, in turn, is why Wall Street perennially downplays the durable virtues of investing and hypes the gaudy appeal of speculation. Unsafe at high speed, confusing speculation with investment. Graham warns it's always a mistake. In 1990s, that confusion led to mass destruction. Almost everyone, it seems, ran out of patience at once, and America became the speculation nation, populated with traders who went shooting from stock to stock like grass shoppers whizzing around in an August hayfield. People began believing that the test of an investment technique was simply whether it worked. If they beat the market over any period, no matter how dangerous or dumb their tactics, people boasted that they were right. But the intelligent investor has no interest in being temporarily right. To reach your long term financial goals, you must be sustainably and reliably right. The techniques that became so trendy in the 1990s, day trading, ignoring diversification, flipping hot mutual funds, following stock picking systems, seemed to work. But they had no chance of prevailing in the long run because they failed to meet all three of Graham's criteria for investing. To see why temporarily high returns do not prove anything, imagine that two places are 130 miles apart. If I observe the 65 mph speed limit, I can drive that distance in 2 hours. But if I drive 130 mph, I can get there in 1 hour. If I try this and survive, am I right? Should you be tempted to try it too? Because you hear me bragging that it worked. Flashy gimmicks for beating the market are much the same in short streaks. So long as your luck holds out, they work. Over time, they will get you killed. In 1973, when Graham last revised The Intelligent Investor, the annual turnover rate on the New York Stock Exchange was 20%, meaning that the typical shareholder held a stock for 5 years before selling it. By 2002, the turnover rate had hit 105%, a holding period of only 11.4 months. Back in 1973, the average mutual fund held on to a stock for nearly 3 years. By 2002, that ownership period had shrunk to just 10.9 months. It's as if mutual fund managers were studying their stocks just long enough to learn they shouldn't have brought them in the first place, then promptly dumping them and starting all over. Even the most respected money management firms got antsy. In early 1995, Jeffrey Winnick, manager of Fidelity Magellan, had 42.5% of its assets in technology stocks. Winnick proclaimed that the most of his shareholders have invested in the fund for goals that are years away. I think their objectives are as same as mine, and they believe as I do that a long-term approach is best. But 6 months after he wrote those high-minded words, Winnick sold off almost all his technology shares, unloading nearly $19 billion worth in 8 franchised weeks. So much for the long term. And by 1999, Fidelity's discount brokerage division was egging on its clients to trade everywhere, anytime, using a palm handheld computer, which was perfectly in tune with the firm's new slogan, "Every second counts." So guys, that's it in this video. The chapter is very long, so I'm gonna upload this chapter in 2 parts. This is the first part. If you like the video, hit the like button and subscribe for more. Thanks for being here. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.